Hello. Is this thing on? Yeah, cool. Hi. How we going? It's a late one tonight. Nearly missed the upload. But I wanted to talk about success. I should have recorded this video when I first had the thought because it came about due to an Instagram reel, actually. I think it was Ed Sheeran. I know people love to hate the guy, but he was going on about success and failure. And it was a case of how failure is, it's like shame, but it's also what's required in order to succeed. The path to success isn't like a straight line. It's not a linear thing. You don't just do something and succeed. And you're going to fail many, many times as you try to do things. But it made me think about the very first video that I put up and how I feel that I fail in a lot of aspects of life for various reasons. And in that short moment of seeing that clip where he mentions that failure is shame, I kind of get it. It's one of those things that we have this relationship with failure and what we deem failure to be, and how it's shameful, and how people look at us because we don't tick a certain box. We're not at a certain position in life when it's basically expected of you to be, and therefore you're a failure. But everybody kind of operates differently, where one person may be seen as a failure for whatever reasons. They might actually be more successful than others. You're a failure because you still live at home, but you have some really good relationships with your parents and the family and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that I know who don't see their parents anywhere near as much as what they would want to. And as you get older, I feel that you really kind of realize how much you, I say, want them around, but you know what I mean? Like, they're important to us, and it's a tricky one, but more importantly, it was just literally like the path to success. And I don't know if people have seen like the meme and stuff, but it's like there's a drawing in a road, and it's a straight road, and it's like what people think the path to success is. What people think the path to success is. Jesus, that's a tongue twister. But then there's another one that's like this wiggly road that's like fail, 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 success. And it's like that's the true path. But I was wondering, what is it that makes us feel that we can't fail, that we're not allowed to fail, that basically not succeeding is bad, when the reality of it all is if you don't try something, you won't make mistakes, you won't learn anything. So if you don't try something, you don't make mistakes, you don't learn something, how are you ever going to kind of grow and progress and find out who you are, find out what you're like, or find out what your abilities are? And this is something that for myself, I definitely know that I struggle with. It's something that I touch on a lot with the counsellor, and there's this deep rooted feeling that I'm just supposed to get it right first time, every time, and there is no ifs and buts. And when we've spoken about a lot of stuff, like a lot of trauma and trauma responses, I've turned to him and gone, yeah, but I should have dealt with that situation better, because the way that I dealt with it, I felt like I failed. He'll turn to me and go, you were 10 years old, you have no life experience at that point, you dealt with it the way that you knew how, you learn from those experiences and you grow. But for me, it's a case of looking back and seeing how I handled that, the impact that it has had on me, and to some degree it's like the control that situation has had over my life for so long. I should have dealt with that situation better to stop all of that stuff happening. Does that make sense? So it's like I failed myself in that situation, and there's a lot of shame and everything else, but it's a real tough one of understanding where that all comes from. Why do we literally think and feel the way that we do about things? And I think what I find really interesting is a lot of the way we are is to do with how we soak things up when we're really young and we soak the world up around us. For some of us, like myself, that's really impactful. The impact that has is is quite big. It sets you up for life going forwards, basically. Positives, negatives, everything in between. What I find really interesting though is how there's some people in the world who just don't seem to be phased by that sort of thing. They can live through some of the most traumatic experiences of life, and then they come out the other side like it never happened to them, like it wasn't even a thing. Everybody is different. Everybody deals with a situation differently, and we are basically a combination of our parents, grandparents, everybody else's experiences, and it makes us who and what we are. There's a few things that the last couple of weeks I've been trying to do some digging to find out. For example, why I struggle to accept praise. If I do something well, people praise you for it, and that just sits really uncomfortably for me. I don't like it. It just doesn't sit right. Well, a little bit of digging turns out is that's something that I witnessed. It was interactions that I saw of my father and how people would treat my dad and how he was. And you soak those things up. So it's a weird one. And there's a few things that we touched on about what you witnessed growing up in those early years. And what I'm fast understanding is a lot of my battles are a result of what I've witnessed. What I witnessed basically programmed into me of basically what a man should do, what a man should be, what a man should do. Because of that, if I don't hit those metrics, I feel like I've massively screwed up. Massively, massively screwed up. The problem that you got is those metrics, that bar, whatever you want to call it, is set really high. Because it's how the older people in my life looked back at their parents, their grandparents, whatever else. So if you take, for example, my great granddad on my mum's side, the guy was, from what I'm told, this absolute, like, he was just somebody who was extremely well connected. He, so the family was the first family in the village to ever own a car, to ever own a television, to ever own a colour television. You know, he was very well known. He had a lot of dealings with a lot of development and things like this. So I get these stories of the sort of person that he was. He was a very successful man. He was a very well connected man. I get these put into me from my nan. And then I hear about what my mum's father was like. And he was basically what you, or what I say what you, so it's definitely what I have been fed of what a man is. He was extremely practical. There was not a thing that he could not do. He was very, very practical. He was also extremely smart. Again, well connected in the community. He was a firefighter as well as a mechanic. Like, he did all these, like, he ticked the box of bravery. He ticked the box of being very hands-on and very practical. He was very technical. He was extremely smart, you know. He was able to do pretty much everything and anything. So my mum has this, basically she's got her father on a pedestal of what a man is. Now I've grown up with witnessing how she has treated my dad. Unfortunately, my dad, he hadn't he hadn't got a mentor in his life. His father was terrible, very, 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 very bad person. Like their family relationships on my dad's side is just, it's so rough. He was telling me a story about he had a long lost uncle. This uncle from my dad just literally disappeared from one day to the next when my dad was about 12 years old. Never saw him. It wasn't until probably just after lockdowns that my dad just randomly found this guy who turned out to be his great uncle, and they were reconnected. That guy's now passed away. So there's these great big holes in my dad's life. And he, like I say, he never had that mentor of that old school, like, manliness, if you like. And this is the influence that I've had, is watching my mum expect my dad to be like him, to be like her dad, sorry, which is just not going to happen. And then it's almost like that has then fed me with what I'm supposed to be as a man. And there's a lot of pressure. And if I don't get anywhere close to it, I feel like I'm failing, massively, massively failing. The world is a very different place, but it doesn't change the influences that you've grown up with. It doesn't change what has shaped you. You know, there could be a million and one fair and real reasons, but because they don't fit the narrative that you witnessed, it makes it really hard to believe you are capable, I guess. I think a lot of that basically plays into what I was trying to say about success and failure for who you are. I don't really know who I am. I still don't to this day. A lot of who I am that other people know me as is people pleasing for their benefit. I've tried to do things for myself and always been told I'm doing something too much, or I shouldn't do this, or I should take a break. But because of that energy has constantly been fed to me, I've literally stopped doing stuff. So it's almost like I know for sure there are times where I basically gave up on myself because others told me that what I was doing wasn't right. The irony there is it wasn't right for them. It wasn't part of their opinion of me. It wasn't necessarily going to be a bad thing for myself. So in terms of success and failure, I'm looking at it from an internal character point of view to like find out who you are. You've got to do stuff and understand yourself. If, hey, am I this person? Am I a person who runs every day? Am I a person who does this every day? Am I a person who's got this hobby? You know what I mean? But when you're a people pleaser and there's an influence outside of you that's dug in and ingrained in you that basically goes, hey, no, you're not that sort of person. You're not that sort of person. You're not that sort of person. You don't do the work to fail to find out where you can succeed. Because as rubbish as it is, you've already failed because you failed yourself. And it's not that kind of failing to learn something, to learn something, to learn something, like the constant zigzag of failure to get success. It's literally like you just failed. Because all we have is who we are. We might not know who we are, but you can't be somebody else's version of you. Because when they're not around, you've only got yourself. If you don't know who you are, how do you know who to be? I feel this year is going to be a lot of deep questioning of myself. Just trying to work that bit out of who I am, I guess. And if I was to basically write a character profile for who I am, what would it look like? What would I put under like hobbies and interests? What would I put under like activity? What do I put under? You know what I mean? Like, how would that character profile look? Because at the minute, I don't know. It's very bland. It's very like, hey, I've got a job. I turn up. I do my job. Hey, I'm currently in a relationship. I do the relationship thing as and when I need to. But outside of that, it's like, well, what's your interest and hobbies? I don't know. There's things I think I like, but I don't know if I like them because I like them or if I like them because people have told me that I like them. I feel I've had a good few years of trying to break down some of the lost, lost, I don't know how to explain it, like the lost, just overall lostness, I guess. The feeling of feeling lost, feeling of feeling like I've failed. Trying to understand a bit more of why I feel like that, but then, it's time to work out who we are. What do I look like to myself? Yeah, it's scary because you're asking questions that you're not too sure about, really. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be remembered as, I guess, to some degree? Because ultimately, you're only going to be remembered for 2 or 3 generations. Kids, your great grandkids. Sorry, your kids, your grandkids. If you have great grandkids, fair enough. But what's that? There's a sort of saying, isn't there, that 100 years time, no one's going to know who you are. That should be very powerful because it's almost like it doesn't matter what you do then. But at the same time, I don't know, it's a weird one. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you again next time. Bye. Bye, guys.